We were so busy talking in the back room, we didn't even realize it was 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever time zone you're in. Poor Emmanuel Ruddock, who is with us tonight, is calling all the way from Coventry, England, and it's 3 a.m. his time. So I am so grateful that he stayed up late for us, and he's still, you would never know it. He's like, he just got up and had coffee. He's wide awake and he's brilliant.
And
And his
the
mind
funny
is
thing is,
working
I don't drink coffee, so it's
even more so. That's probably why. And then I have on my other side, oh, I'm a lucky girl tonight to be surrounded by two beautiful gentlemen. On my other side is Richard Morant, and he is in New York City tonight. And for him, he's on the East Coast and he's getting ready to celebrate a friend's wedding this weekend. So we are just thrilled to be here with you. And Emmanuel, I don't want to waste 1 second because after you tell us a little bit about you, Black owned finance, Cosmos Universe, and your big plans for the future, I want to get into this conversation seriously about two things tonight that I have on my plate. The first is the ethics of Avatar. Is it ethical for you to represent yourself as a white woman or for me to represent myself as a black male in the metaverse? So, the ethics of Avatar, I want to talk about from your perspective. And then the second thing I would really like to discuss is this idea from one of my heroes, Dr. Cornel West, out of Harvard and Princeton universities. Dr. Cornel West, who talks about this idea of radical conditionedness, our conditionedness in this world that we want to blow out of the water in the metaverse and eliminate with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So let me not talk anymore, and I really want you to have the floor. Will you share your great, wonderful projects with us?
yeah. So just so everyone knows, yeah, I'm Emmanuel Ruddock. I'm the co-founder of Blackowned Finance, and just a little bit of background about me as well. I've been in the crypto space for a while now. I've apart from been doing some creative marketing for some crypto projects. I've also been advising a few as well. Currently started my own project with four other co-founders. One of them being Edie Amin from Tupac's The Outlaws crew, which is terrific to have on board, especially with his potential of people that he knows and potential people he can onboard. But Black owned finance itself, it's the next innovative, next generation project on the Binance Smart Chain network. So within itself, we have the Hive ecosystem, which features the Cosmos Metaverse, which we're really excited about, and also the Cosmos The Origins game, which is a game that's split up into three classifications. The first one, so first you'll have to play to register, and once you've completed that, you will then start the first game, which is Conquest. And Conquest will be an action-packed game where you have to fight your way through. So, and the whole storyline behind the actual game is a divine war of the untold story of gods and heroes, a war that shaped our world today, experience time and space, but first you need to survive. So you actually play as a god character yourself, the first one being Anubis, who you will have to fight your way through the underworld and make your way through to the next level in order to register as a player to in order then play the next game, which is Conquer. And that's an RPG strategy game, which includes 50 levels, which you need to complete in order to build up your character's experience, earn NFTs in the form of spells, weapons, armory, and also breed heroes as well, which you're able to summon within the next game. So once you've completed those 50 strategy levels and you've actually acquired the relevant experience for your character and everything to move forward, you can then register to be a a Cosmos Metaverse player for the last game, which is War of the Gods, which we are aiming to launch within the Metaverse. That itself is really exciting for us. And I will touch back on it as well, being the Metaverse and game being the main utilities of our project. But other than that, we have the actual Recordion, which is a music streaming platform, and that's going to be spearheaded by Edie Amin in order to ensure that actually it's a streaming platform that actually benefits the artists instead of the provider that's actually bringing the platform to the artists. As we know, how streaming have actually affected the money that artists actually get with these days as well, and how it makes it harder. So that's something we plan to change. And we also have the Vibranium Deck Swap, the Vibranium Wallet, and also staking as well, and also the NFT marketplace. In being such a big project, we're looking at the fact that our lead developer has been working on a lot of these for a long time. So in terms of a lot of them have been already coded on the back end. Recordion music streaming platform is already starting to be tested with audio that we're uploading on there. The NFT marketplace will be ready before we launch near the end of January. And yeah, so there's a lot of things that we're really excited about. Moving back to the game itself, it's going to absolutely be something that we're just excited about, because it's going to be big within the sense of the game that we launch in the Metaverse, War of the Gods. That's something we actually plan to incorporate esports gaming within, because for example, over the next year or so, the esports actually industry in Africa is going to grow by 12%. So that's a big increase for such an industry. And a lot of the big actually companies out there have got their eye on the African market for what it can bring. And we're actually one of the, if not the first gaming actual production company that is actually going after the esports environment, which is going to absolutely set us ahead. Because in the terms of our fighting game, we all know that the concept of esports gaming is competitiveness. So if you're able to provide a game where people can actually use a skill, what they can demonstrate to others, which is unique and is hard to acquire, you're then able to start that competitive edge to start building within that. So that is something within the long-term plan that we hope to achieve with that. It is going to be a play-to-earn game. As we know, the benefits of play-to-earn is absolutely phenomenal, like we were discussing earlier. What it's doing for the Philippines is actually changing lives, and we love that, and we want to bring that to Africa. We want to bring that to the rest of the world, to India, to Thailand, wherever there's struggling communities that can actually utilize this source, because we know there's the ethics part about in some laws it's considered gambling play to earn, but I believe what it's actually doing and how it's changing lives is I don't see it in the same actual boundary or segment within. It's a completely different category, because gambling doesn't change people's lives. Gambling doesn't generate so much income for so many people. Gambling, the house wins. Right now, the people are winning, playing these play-to-earn games. And as long as we, as play-to-earn developers and stuff like that, actually make sure our projects actually benefit the investors and the people that play in, and we've actually taking those ethics into consideration when we're actually making our platforms, that's going to put the pressure on them to actually realize, no, it's not gambling, and this is something we take forward. And I believe everyone who makes play-to-earn games has that actual moral responsibility to make sure we're doing so. So it's something that we plan to actually take big. In terms of the metaverse, so excited about the metaverse. As we know, it's trending so much. that's why earlier I was saying, like, for one company to claim the whole thing is crazy, because
Ridiculous. Yeah.
it, it's going to be revolutionary, just even in the sense of education. Where I live, and like you also, Richard, is catchment areas. If you don't live in the right catchment area, you can't go to the right school that you want to send your kid to. So it makes it a lot harder. So some kids are going to deprived schools because of their catchment area. The metaverse is going to change all of that. The best teacher can have children from all over the world in his primary school lesson, in his secondary school lesson. So it's going to be so amazing. So there's going to be lots of metaverses that come out and are unique to different lots of interests.
I agree completely. I agree completely.
Yeah.
I have one question for you, Emmanuel. How do you see the rollout of hardware coming in through Africa to support the software and so on that you're talking about? Because, I mean, we've spoken on here before that there is still the barrier of entry, specifically for places like Africa, which is so low income, to get the hardware to be able to have access to the games and so on that you're generating. What do you see happening in that part in Africa?
I see that part as a long. It's a sort of a thing where you have to see how it goes, because it's a process anyway. Because if you even talk about in terms of graphic cards, they're gold dust these days, especially with the mining that's going on and stuff like these. That there's gamers can't even seem to get enough themselves. So I think it's going to be, and that's why I believe going for the esports side of it is going to help us a lot easier, because we're going to build that brand up for when the hardware is actually there and they're able to do it on a big, international way or national way. Then we'll be actually at the forefront of that. But in terms of the hardware that is there now, it's catching up, because Egypt's gaming is actually growing every year, and being one of Africa's biggest gaming countries out there in the continent, it's doing amazing things. So I see continual growth coming. It's just at what rate. But there are places like Egypt and Nigeria where that has picked up relatively fast.
Yeah, South Africa is always there with the infrastructure and so on. I've been speaking with a fair few people in like Banjul and so on at the moment, which I was fascinated to hear how fast tech is being picked up in West Africa. So I heard as well that Egypt is doing very well into the tech. So it's nice to see these little pockets of interest now really starting to pick up in these countries.
And that's what's really good as well, because the whole fact that it brings an interesting point to it as well, because the fact Egypt's growing so much in gamers as well. Our actual aesthetics for our metaverse is actually the Pyramid of Giza, because it also flows in line with our actual game as well, and starting off with Anubis. So that's the kind of aesthetics that we plan to have. So yeah, we're really excited about that, because in terms of our metaverse, we're going to be hosting concerts, music and fashion award shows. We're going to have a conference hall to start onboarding blockchain conferences and etc. And also we're going to be having the esports with the game on there, and also we plan to have a fundraising event which we call the Foundation within the metaverse, where we generate large sums of money to donate to charity. But
incredible.
Yeah, so they're just one of a few things. In terms of the concerts, that's what we actually plan to launch with, being having Idi Amin within our actual in our co-founder team as well. So yeah, it's something that we're really excited for, because the metaverse concerts are going to change music for everyone. And it's going to be fascinating how, because we've seen with the lockdown, it's the struggle what it's put artists through is been really, really bad for them, because a lot of people don't really think about the struggling music artists and stuff like that. And when there's no work, if you're not a signed artist, there really is no work. So, and
I was speaking with a friend of mine in LA who's a musician, and he was saying that it's not just the A-listers who've taken a big knock. It's the group of artists who were just about to break through. You know, the group that were there or thereabouts, but hadn't quite got through. But now, since COVID's happened, there's no money for that late, and the only people who are getting the investment are the top listers, A-listers, and all of the people who are sitting around that, we're good enough, we're just about to make it, but COVID. So what you're doing for that level of people is absolutely incredible.
And that's the thing with it all. We plan to open the doors for everyone with all the utilities that we do. So in terms of the NFT marketplace, we plan to make that multi-cross chain, because we find that there's lots of different communities that actually make NFTs on different networks depending on to their preference, whether it's due to localization or actual just their preference indeed. So it's something that we plan to help, because we find there's quite a lot of lack of representation for communities out there. Like, you kind of have to search for it. So
where do you find them? Where do you find them primarily?
So it's just like a unique place. So I found a lot of the black ones on like groups like NFT, Black NFT Art. There's a lot of Philippine NFT amazing artists that are in their own certain groups, and it's about just all bringing them together and letting them know there's this platform that you can all mint your NFTs on, and and actually get your items actually showcase out there. Because even when we link that to the metaverse itself, it's like a lot of metaverses are going to have billboards in there and stuff like that, and we plan to advertise not just the big NFT artists on there. We plan to have a billboard that's dedicated to promoting all the NFT artists on there, so you can be featured within the metaverse. You don't have to be that big amazing NFT artist. We're there to help everyone have that platform to display their skill and actually get the credit they deserve for it. In terms of the music platform, that's something where we plan to make sure we onboard all the good talented artists out there, whichever music you make, whether it's Bhangra, whether it's hip hop, it doesn't matter what music you make. We plan to have a platform that's fair for you to upload your music on, and the streaming and the royalties is actually beneficial for the artist. And with EDI spearheading that's something we're positive we can do, having seen the whole behind the scenes of the high level and the low levels from when he was starting out. So that's something I'm really excited about for artists on there.
What an incredible story.
Yes, and even within that now, we've already started onboarding artists that will feature on it when it launches, and we've literally got around because there's me, the other co-founder Faz, and EDI Amin, and then we've also, with the help of Faz, onboarded 7 other artists that are all from different countries. Wow. So one being from Thailand, one being from Vietnam, one being from South Africa, and so forth. So we plan to I can't let the cat out of the bag yet, but we plan to do something very, very big in that sense. So it's looking really great in terms of actually, because we've got a big project as well. So just so people know, we've been in the main process right now of just onboarding companies to help us achieve what we need to, because there are a lot of projects out there that onboard recruitment in-house. And that takes a lot of time, takes a lot of vetting, it takes a lot of trust. And also when people are ill, it's not a company, so they don't have backup replacements to carry on with that work. So we've been in talks with one company that I can't disclose as of yet until it's done, but they're they're one of the biggest companies which we're very excited about, and also had a great sense of passion in the same way we felt in terms of inclusion within the metaverse. So that was really fantastic. And the next one being a group that Lands actually knows, and I, the talks are going good with that. But see, I'm unaware if I'm able to
He wants to
disclose
say, but he
this.
can't.
You know what's so
We
fun
understand.
Say that again, sorry.
it's so fun these days, but I've been in the startup world for quite a while now, and it was always for a long time really hard to get into conversations with big companies and people who are doing really big things. And now all of a sudden, with the advent of NFTs, with the coming along of what we're doing with the metaverse and so on, it's giving us at the small level access to the big levels. They're actually
Yes.
starting to look for projects that are small, that are base level developments, that are ground floor, grassroots stuff like what you're doing. And you're actually able to tap into big companies.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Definitely, and that's been a great thing to see as well, because it's been the actual founders in the sense that I've been in talks with and reaching out to. So it's been really good, because in terms of production, we're onboarding two companies for that. In terms of the marketing, we've talks into for that as well. One specifically for the game and the metaverse, and another one for the crypto marketing as well, for the actual charts, to make sure our investors are getting a good return on investment. And yeah, and also an amazing thing which I'm so happy about. I don't know if we're definitely one of the few that are in the trend of, we've already onboarded our first designer fashion label within our metaverse. So
Wow.
it's not going to be just a case of we have their wearable NFTs on our marketplace. It's a sense of where they're going to have their own store within our metaverse as well. So it's going to be like you're able to walk in that shop and purchase the NFTs, which is something we're really fascinated about. So that's when we should be able to announce that within a week or so from now. So and we're just trying to just keep doing revolutionary things. So with the tapping into the esports and tapping into the fashion branding from now, it's going to be really key on that. As you both know yourselves, even from seeing your posts, a lot of fashion brands are gearing up for what is to come.
They should
And
be.
yeah, and it's also doing great things as well, because it's driving them to realize there's going to be a representation issue when we come to the metaverse, with how people want to be represented, and the identity crisis talks have already started happening with the fashion labels. So it's something that's interesting to see.
I mean, the avatars alone are starting to become a hotbed of discussion point.
Yes, definitely.
One of the things that I love about what you're doing is you have a real heart for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And something you said, two things you said. You said, esports is coming for Africa. And um, sort of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because Africa's been left behind in technological growth for many years, even since the advent of the internet. And still to this day, it's true that we have, as Richard alluded to earlier, these infrastructural developments that still need to take place in very rural communities and communities of lesser privilege, let's say, or lesser
Yeah,
access, maybe is a better word. And it's kind of okay, sports are going to come for us, but Where were you 5 years ago? Where were you 10 years ago? And I love that your intent is not to empower. I love that your intent is to reclaim, because the metaverse space is truly one of the first spaces that I'll ever see in my lifetime, and I'm a civil rights baby, that I'll ever see in my lifetime that is an equal playing field.
Yeah.
And whether or not I'm a Filipino or a black or a white or an Asian is not going to matter when I'm in a digital form, an avatar form, playing with my cryptocurrency on the blockchain, making money, living large,
Yeah.
and contributing good to the world, right? It does not
Yeah.
matter. Simply does not matter. So I wanted to talk with you. There's so much that I want to bring to light tonight, but one of the things that viewers should know is that Emmanuel, in addition to this creative organizational genius, is also seeking, through Black owned finance and through Cosmos Metaverse, to, I don't want to say rewrite, to reclaim, let's use reclaim Black history that you shared with me about the civil rights leader that we all look at in our contemporary cultured society as maybe having been um, a force of malice in the world, who actually maybe wasn't that, and how the metaverse is affording you, your company, your team, your vision, the opportunity to bring to light historical truths. Can you share that story?
Yeah, because I think it's just a case of as well in general, like the metaverse, it's a great place for everything like that, in a sense, especially inclusion, and especially creating that uniqueness in terms of inclusion within it. Is, for me, it goes beyond it. It's empowering to you as a person, because to be in the metaverse and be who you want to be is great. And I know even we mentioned a bit before, to about touching on the ethics of what can you be in the metaverse? Can I go in as a white guy? Can someone go in who's white as a black guy? I think the metaverse is so great in that, because I'm a firm believer as, like, if you want to go in as a black guy, go in, as long as it's for that great reasons, because I think we all should embrace all our cultures. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm doing it as an embracing thing, then it's absolutely amazing. You know what I mean? Because that's how we all learn from each other. When people say, like, even in real life, the greatest thing is to travel to other countries to see their point of views, and that's absolutely amazing. So for me, if you're doing it in an embracing way, yes, definitely do that and be who you want to be. Definitely, their digital space should not be a space with limitations.
Yes,
And
but on the other hand, I mean, if we talk openly and freely, we say that uh, my understanding of what it is to be a black man in this world has been shaped primarily by the civil rights figures. So by that I mean Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton. Um, I'll even go as far as to say Barack Obama, or maybe people like Dr. Cornel West. I'm going to mention him again. I also happen to love, there's a pastor here in Texas, T.D. Jakes. These are the men, Colin Powell, who's a great American hero and just passed away, may God rest his soul. These are people that have shaped, and let's not also forget recent victims of civil rights discrimination and violence, and people that have been in the news. I don't want to negate them as well. But these are the people that shape our understanding of what it is to live as a black man in society. Now here we are in the metaverse. How can I possibly know whether or not I'm going to be a positive or a bad actor if I don't truly understand what that means. The same would be true for you. You could not present, I don't want to speak for you, but you could not present yourself honestly and authentically and transparently as a white woman in the metaverse because you don't know what it is to be a white woman.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, those high heels kill. So with this, we have there is a dangerous territory, and I'm not a naysayer of the metaverse at all. Both Richard and I know you are as well, are bullish on metaverse. But there is an element of, wait a second, how do we represent ourselves in this gaming, fun, playful, open environment that's got this amazing entertainment and amazing talent, but yet still stay true to what is truth? How do you do that?
Oh, my first one here, I just want to jump in here quickly because I have a couple of really strong feelings on this one. So first one here is I think there's an age issue here that needs to be dealt with. Because like with most things, children haven't formed their identity properly yet as children. So I think we have to be very careful of the long-term ramifications that we're not fully aware of yet, of when children are in that exploratory stage of their life and testing out stage of their life, and that they don't end up wanting to become who they are in digital world in the real world.
Yeah.
I think we have to still be very careful, particularly with children, to make sure they can still understand the definition and the distinction between real world and digital world, and how soon they're allowed to represent themselves differently in the meta world. So my personal kind of thoughts is, fine, there's an age restriction on driving, there's an age restriction on drinking. There should be an age restriction on when you can change from your real representation avatar to whatever you want. Saying something down the lines of, if you're under 18, the avatar that you pick should be something that represents yourself rather than something not yourself, so that you still stay connected to yourself in the real world. And I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if there's something there, but I feel very strongly to protect the real world identity of children as we go into metaverse.
Yeah, and I think that's a actual strong point that you've put on, and it relates to going back to the actual ethical side of what we do as businesses as well, like to incorporate that in there, and because it's going to be a case of each one will have to use their own form of regulation until there's some universal thing, if that ever takes place. So yeah, that in itself is going to come down to the responsibility of the project owners to make sure they're looking into these things, because it is going to be something that is going to have its complications, but it's something that I think metaverse projects themselves, like Decentraland per se, and Sandbox, shouldn't see themselves as enemies, but should work together in achieving these things. And I think all metaverse projects that are like that should be learning from one another, trying to actually create this from the get-go, instead of us all trying to come together and build it when it's actually too late and the floodgates are actually open. In terms of actually the metaverse itself and what it can do for us as Black people, it's like crypto. I always say it's a time for Black people and other communities to jump on board, because we're literally at the start now of the next financial structure. So it's like the metaverse, we're at an even playing field. Like, people are becoming rich overnight. It's really important to be on board. And it's the same thing with the metaverse as well. It's going to bring so much pride into cultures through the fact that when people are producing all their Black NFT art, and if you find out what within every culture, there's a whole section of artists that actually just produce NFT art according to their cultural background and stuff like this,
Yes.
and to have it locked on the blockchain forever so it can't be altered. We've always lived in history where the winners write the story. Well, this time you can write your story and it can't be edited, and that there is amazing. And to have that then showcased in the metaverses is perfect. Like it all just comes together. But the key thing is what we need to do as well is make sure people don't get lost within your metaverse and still have those moral rights. The same way computers have, you play for 6 hours now, take a 2 hour break. There'll be a disable function within there.
Oh, don't tell me we lost him.
Did his phone die?
Oh, I
Okay,
heard a
I'm sure
beep
he'll
in the
come back on.
background.
I'm sure he'll come back on.
Let's hope he
While
charges in. Yes.
While he's away, though, Shauna, I want
Yes.
to know what you're thinking about avatars.
Well, this is the thing. When I'm in Decentraland and I'm Shrunken Shawnee, who, by the way, is very cute, and she has a little mini skirt on and a little short sleeve top, and she walks around in her little high heels. She's very cute. My experience of that is much more, how do I say, of a visual.
Yeah. Hold on, I've lost you as well. Are you going to come back? I'm all alone. Oh dear. Okay, so I'll waffle about avatars. How about that? Okay. What am I going to waffle about avatars about? Let's waffle about...
Avatar do you want?
What would I want? Okay, so let's think. What kind of avatar would I want?
Okay, there you are. Okay.
There we go. So I've been kind of wondering, what avatar would I have? I think I'm going to go with something green.
Well, here's the thing that I was just about to say. So you have this transference that happens. It's kind of like when you're first in love and you start to feel the feelings of of your paramour, the person that you're in love with, right?
Yeah.
You see through the world through their eyes. That you sort of embrace them in your own spirit. The avatar experience is very much the same. But whether or not I'm Shrunken Shawnee or I'm a green monster, the exchange is different. The transference is different when I'm the green monster versus when I'm Shrunken Shawnee. So there's got to be some kind of psychological and sociological studies about how we relate to avatars, how they interact, what they mean, and how we identify with them. You want to be a what did you say? Did you want to be?
I just said something green. I'm
something green.
I'm so into the idea of not being descript. Because especially when it comes to race, race has been something that's been always an issue in my life. You know what I mean? Race has always been something that other people around me are always not affected by, but what's the right term for it? Aware of or passionate about. And I really have no race feelings. I have so many friends from so many places in so many parts of the world that race means very, very little to me. But a lot of people around me, it means a lot too. So I like the idea of being able to go to the metaverse and not have a race.
Yes, I like that too.
Particularly raceless, because I mean, especially for someone like me, I've been to 130 countries. I've spoken to cannibals. I've had conversations and perspectives from everywhere on the planet. So just limiting myself and saying I'm white, it doesn't really work for me. I don't like
this is why I hope so much that Emmanuel can come back and join us, because what he did not share about Black-owned finance and Cosmos Metaverse is that there's this whole arm that he's working in that has to do with edutainment, this educational entertainment intersection.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is they're going back and looking at historical figures in the past, because our history is our best predictor of our future. And so they're taking stories of civil rights personalities that, you know, maybe we understand what we think we know about Rosa Parks, But do we really know the story of Rosa Parks and her background and her people and the generation that came after her? But more so, they're doing this with controversial figures. So controversial people in Black history and particularly in African American history, such as with the Black Panthers and the Civil Rights Movement, where we have such an incredible race issue in the United States and everywhere in the world that their thinking is that if they can represent and re-represent the truth of the history of pivotal figures that maybe were presented in a controversial way, that in this way they can embolden and enlargen and enrichen the entire community as a whole. And that's why I wanted to get to, again, Dr. Cornel West, who I greatly admire, and his thinking and writing on this radical conditionedness, which primarily applies to people in the Black history. But the reason that's important to us today in the metaverse is the fact that all of us have this radical conditionedness to living in the real world and living in this technological age that we're in. We do not possess the radical conditionedness of what it is to live in the metaverse.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I find so fascinating about the metaverse at the moment. A, the possibilities, and B, I'm interested in the risks. I don't know if it's the sick side of me or this not. I don't know, but I'm fascinated to see where the risks are, because I'm also fascinated by the power of unintended consequences. I mean, people like what Steve Dubner and so on did with Freakonomics, and the looking at where levers work and where consequences happen that we can't predict. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with the metaverse for this, and particularly down the lines of what's going to happen with Meta. I mean, the idea for me there is the Meta changed the idea of what free means on the internet, where if it's free on the internet, you're the product. And that distinction, I think, has to be looked at of what becomes for that in the metaverse. Because if you're the only reason that you're able to get access to the metaverse is to be advertised at, and you're the product because it's free, I'm thinking there's going to be some throwback against that in the metaverse, because we haven't been able to throw back against it in the real world or in the web at the moment. But I think in the metaverse that there's so many people who are so tired of having that kind of stuff thrown in their faces that we're going to have to start thinking of different ways to marketing in the metaverse. Because I think banners and the whole right side of a screen being filled with adverts or road signs or all of that starting to creep into the metaverse, I don't know if the people are going to take it again, because they're already so tired of becoming products.
But there is, on the other hand, so much that does not involve advertising on the metaverse, the emerging metaverse, let me say. We have, I mean, Richard, just you and I alone have had some conversations of late with people whose true intent and heart and soul is the advancement of music, the advancement of art, the advancement of literature, the advancement of
artists,
education. Again, it's primarily, we can now go on the internet today and take a MOOC course and do that relatively for free. And there is no feeling of I'm a product or my data is being sold or there's some master plan at play here. I do come away from those classes with the feeling of, okay, I just learned how to program in, SketchUp or whatever the case may be. So it is going to be a counterbalance of that marketing, economic, financial piece balanced against the conglomerate cultural consensus of, no, we're not going to go there. We really want to be in a space that is enriching, enlivening, enjoyable, lovely, fun, engaging.
I think educational. I think that this edutainment thing is here to stay. I mean, we made an edutainment documentary for TV. So as the youth in particular start spending more time in the metaverse, the opportunity for education is very diverse and very interesting, but also very scary. Because again, I think that there's a large amount of info that's going to end up being interacted with on the metaverse. The same as now YouTube is now the greatest compendium of knowledge ever. I mean, it makes the Library of Alexandria look like a corner store if you kind of coagulate all of the actual learning that you can get on YouTube. I mean, for me, things like the Royal Institute in England, that has been a place where scientists present new papers since history. I mean, the early physicists, Newton, all of them stood at that desk. And I enjoy watching those presentations on YouTube. Now I'm looking forward to being able to sit in that audience. I mean, that's incredible to be able to have access, in-person access to that level of mind and that level of idea, especially when you know that ideas are not solitary creatures. They're breeding creatures. They need to meet other ideas and grow and coagulate and join. And I think that interaction with knowledge, rather than just being able to consume knowledge, makes it easier to digest and more useful. So education in the metaverse, I think, is going to be massive.
Well, you pointed to something a little earlier when you said about you're looking at this through the lens of age. And it's really a very paradoxical statement, because those that with the wherewithal and the know-how and the historical background are the ones that actually have to build it, right? We get to build it, I should say. But the leaders of the metaverse will not be the same sect of people. The leaders of the metaverse are going to be our children. And the young generation does not have the same repository of references to choose from. So if you take someone who's 14 and you say, okay, we're going to build a music venue on Decentraland, I mean, what does that mean to that 14-year-old? They'll do it, and they'll do it the way they think it should be done, but it doesn't come at 14, 13, 12, whatever the age is, with the same database of reference knowledge that an adult has. When you say now that you can't wait to go in, excuse me, Sebastian, when you say now that you can't wait to go in to view a cultural room so that you can be exposed to all of this knowledge, that comes from an adult mind. And we, all of us, whether we're in marketing or education or entertainment or finance, need to remember that it's really Generation Z, Alpha, and Bravo that are going to be leading the way here, not us.
So I have a question for you there. Have you been keeping on top of what the new Chinese regulations are for the internet, metaverse, and all of this kind of stuff?
Richard, you know.
So
Before we get on, no, wait. Before we get on, all three of us, Emmanuel, Richard, and I hope we can have Emmanuel back, because I hate that he was disconnected. I hate it. Emmanuel, Richard, and I were all three saying it is impossible to keep up with the velocity of this space at this time and age. Yes, I do my level best to try to read everything under the sun, and I do that in a voracious way. But I don't catch everything. I can't. I can't. And if anybody has any ideas out there, I want to hear them. I do. I want to hear them. Why? What were you going to say though about it, China?
Hold on. Here we go. Just sending Emmanuel a message. He's going to pop back on. He said he had
Oh,
some
good,
internet
good, good,
issues.
good, good.
So I was thinking about China because one of the things I've been looking at into China is they're actually now starting to regulate usage and to start thinking, particularly people under X age. I can't remember what the age is, where after a
Yes,
certain amount
I
of
saw that.
periods,
Yeah.
the internet automatically logs off. You can't do more than X amount of hours logged
Yes.
onto the internet a day. They're actually starting to think of restrictions, particularly for kids, of how much time they're allowing them legally to be online.
Yes,
Now,
which
there's
is not a new idea. We got that from Ernest Cline with Ready Player One and Two. There was limited usage. Beyond that usage, you suffered brain injury and bodily injury,
Yeah, that was
and
in number 2, right?
so this idea of restricted usage, time in and time out of the online experience. I know I hear regularly, and I'm sure you do too, that VR users, whether they're using Oculus or some other lens, regularly complain of headaches and vertigo and nausea and eye exhaustion, eye strain, difficulty sleeping. So that's not to discourage VR in any shape or form. It's just to say that the technology still has a long way to come in terms of knowing how it affects us as human beings.
Very
And
much
that's a
so.
scary thing, isn't it? I mean, isn't that a scary thing in a way that I mean, what is it about us that has us jumping in with both feet, almost reckless?
I think there's something about discovery. I mean, in all of history, there's always been geographical discovery to do. I mean, what, 1600s? 1642 was the first white man to land in Cape Town, 1642. So we're looking, what, 400 years? That's very rapid that the world has started to expand and to fill into new places. So it's interesting to see now that that voyage of discovery has been taken away from us. What new discoveries can be made? And I think that's this desire and need for us to learn and find. Oh, hello, hold on. There's Emmanuel.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Okay, let me let him back in.
Everything works out. Oh, I'm so happy.
Sorry about that. My
No.
my internet went down. I was in panic mode. I was like,
No, we're so happy you came back. We're so happy you came back. We're talking about what the heck are we talking about? We were talking about a whole host of things, but I want to turn it back over to you because you are our guest tonight.
yeah.
Let me ask you this. If we have, going back to Dr. Cornel West's statement of this radical conditionedness, and we have this conditionedness of what it is to be, whether it's white or black in this world, but we have no conditionedness as to what it is to be in the metaverse. How do we, in your eyes, as you're developing these communities, how do we navigate that, but no understanding true meaning or the true effect? How do we navigate that in a responsible and intelligent way?
So just as well, just to make sure I've got you right as well, because it broke up a little bit there. So
Sure.
in terms of how we navigate it as well, we just it's going to be a learning curve as we go through it, but it's making sure that whenever you bring out a metaverse, making sure that people are represented in the right way that they want to, because it's going to come to a lot of self-perception as well in terms of the cultural aspects, because even within one culture, there's some people have got their own perception of what they believe. Like what I believe to be a black man might be different to a black man in Nigeria. Like our other co-founder is Nigerian, so yeah, it might be different in that aspect. But I think it's going to be a case of it's going to be a learning curve, but I think it's just something that we just need to pay attention to detail to as we go through, to make sure if any unforeseeable instances do come up, we can react to those quick enough. But in terms of what it is that's probably the toughest question. But
But do you mean? Can I interrupt you for a moment? Do you mean that we care for how we represent people in the real world, or do we care about how we represent people in the digital world, or is it an amalgamation? Is it a mismatch of both?
Yeah, it's got to be a match of both. So because what we're seeing is good to, and what we're finding a lot of cultures like, especially what the Black culture like as well, is going into that metaverse kind of fantasy round with the maybe some ideologies of fashion style, but also incorporating their own heritage as well within that. So you'll see, and I'm starting to see that in some styles of the digital wearables as well, where it will have like the cultural style, but then with some futuristic aspects with it. And I think that mix of both will be the key point to it. And I think that's why, as well, I get fascinated with XR, because even within the metaverse itself, we're going to have that same condition where people just, they get so to like in this new digital lifestyle, they don't want to come out of it back into the reality, to face reality and what goes on. So that's going to be another issue that we're going to have to overcome as well as we go forward. But it's going to be definitely a mix of both, having your culture represented in the new style that you perceive as well.
Perception is key.
Yes, definitely.
It's so funny how the visual clues, like you mentioned, the clothing, the art, the visual clues, how we navigate that primarily from a visual perspective is very interesting, I think.
Yeah, because I think you'll see that within, because obviously there'll be some people that want to go into the metaverse and be green, but what you'll see is they probably have little attributes that relate to their culture within that still give it that same thing. Because you know what I mean, it's going to be the case. Some are going to want to go in the metaverse with elf ears. It's just going to be one of those things. So it's going to be great in the sense. I just like the fact that you yourself can actually choose to be what you want to be without no actual discrimination for you. So I think there's going to be a lot easier in that aspect. He's still going to have his issues, as they all do, but yeah, it's the key thing about ours is that now we've been through the whole Facebooks and those apps. We know a lot of the key issues that are going to come into this. So like it's even talking about these talks now, these didn't happen when these other big platforms came out. So
that's true.
It was an issue when Facebook was already massive. Like, how do we cope with this? People, they're so addicted to having likes. They're so addicted to this. How do we find the balance? Well, if we start from the actual beginning, we're going to be in a better place than they are.
I had an experience recently where I went onto a platform that was new to me, and it was so disorienting because where I entered in the platform, life was ongoing. It wasn't like in the real world we have start and stop points like in a book. You start the book, you stop it. You've gone through the whole story. But in the metaverse, you're entering into a story maybe midpoint. There's already a whole history of things that happened before you got there, and there's a whole history of things that are going to happen after you leave. It was visually disorienting and mentally disorienting because I could not figure out one of the three key things of my life is where I am, where I've been, and where I'm going. That's how I navigate the world. I need to know those three things. If we can imagine these smaller populations, these disenfranchised populations, these populations that have not had equity, that come to the metaverse at the late time in the party, at the last minute of the dance, and they come in to this environment that is so completely technologically new and visually new. And I mean, I really feel for um, latecomers to this game. I really, really do, and I
Yeah,
worry about them.
I feel
yeah,
like a latecomer already.
Yeah, I
yeah,
do too, kind of
definitely,
sometimes.
definitely, and technology within the metaverse space, within the blockchain space, within crypto is moving so fast, and people are doing so much within it that it's as it keeps going on further, every day is putting people on that later aspect. So it's really like a urgency thing, really, for people to get on board. Because by the time mass adoption happens, it will already be
Yeah.
too late in a
I,
sense.
I think it's nice though that the people who are now involved, we get to start thinking about what does the infrastructure look like that the rest's going to run on, because
Yeah,
that's actually what we're building now. The projects that we're mainly concerned about at the moment are much more infrastructural based than just mums and pop stores. We're creating the land, we're creating the space, we're
yeah,
creating the availability for other people to earn money, to play, to interact, to communicate. But the infrastructure is not there. So this is fascinating that we actually
The
get to.
infrastructure, yes, you're right. The infrastructure is not there, but sadly, the financial divide is.
Mhm.
I cannot compete with someone who buys a lot on Sandbox. And Sandbox, if you're listening, right here. No offense, Emmanuel. Or the Cosmos. Somebody who buys land at $2,265,000 for a piece of digital land, I'm already out of the game. And we haven't even begun. So there still is that
yeah,
for what was supposed to be DeFi, decentralization, uh,
yeah.
equitable monetization. I don't know that currently really exists.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like a lot of projects. What they're starting to do now in order to help combat that, and it doesn't do it entirely, is they're making a lot of they're making sure they've got a lot of digital land that is available at a lower price and at a fair launch as well. So there are people that can actually get in there, because that is another thing that is going to come to light in a big way soon, because digital real estate is going to overtake actual real estate, and people don't understand what's to come. There be people renting out their real estate, earning their digital real estate's earning loads and loads of money. So in the sense of when a big person can just come through and buy this the best plot, and it takes away the little person and everything like that, it's yeah, it can then obviously create further that gap. So it's something that needs to be considered as we're doing the real estate within our metaverse, and something Blackowned Finance will be looking into as well.
And we saw that too, Richard, in Stevenson's Snow Crash.
Mhm.
Because here you have the main protagonist who is a man of means on the metaverse, but yet lives in a U-Haul storage container in the real world.
I love that book.
So, I think you shared with us you're getting ready to launch pretty soon. You're almost there. You're thinking January.
Yeah, the end of January. We do want to make sure that we've got much in place as possible, because once you start, it's pretty much go time in crypto. Crypto is always a space where I say 1 minute is like it's like a year, isn't it?
Yes.
So I think if I could get royalties off the time anyone in crypto mentioned or typed when, I'd already be rich. Like
Yes.
I'd already be rich. So I'm so so
Well, thank God it's never
something
too late.
yeah, so we want to have everything in place as well, so they know that we've actually show a sign of actually how serious we are with the project as well, and getting the people on board it as well before we actually go forth. That's why it was more for January, and because December, it's not really it's a volatile month because the stock market's shut, so that cuts out a whole lot of traders, the children Christmas and stuff like that. So with the new year, we plan to launch then with everything with a lot of the utilities ready to go.
Timing is so important. Emmanuel,
Yes.
don't go anywhere. We are going to sign off because we're beyond an hour. We want to thank everyone for participating, especially my co-host Richard Morant, our guest Emmanuel Ruddock of Blackowned Finance and Cosmos Metaverse. Richard and I just want to tell you that we love you. We love what you're doing. We want to make ourselves available to you. We wish you every success under the sun, and we just want to really see you do well. Our heart is really with you in that way. We have
Thank you very much.
it's been our joy, and we want to have you come back too after it launches so that we can hear more about how it's developing. Just very quickly, next Wednesday night we have Richard Zreek from Innovate Girls, and Richard is teaching young women under the age of 18 how to become metaverse developers. And so this is yet another group that needs a helping hand and needs to get some equity there, and that's what we want to see. So join us for that.
Yeah, definitely, because that's actually brilliant, because I know there's another lady, I've seen her profile recently, and she owns a actual esports gaming company for women to help women within the esports, and I thought that was absolutely fascinating.
Steffi Bao, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I thought
In it esports, yes. She's phenomenal.
Because even when I was doing...
Do you know she's a 3-time world champion in motorbike sports? Do you know that?
Wow.
Isn't that fantastic?
She's incredible.
Yeah, because when I was doing my research into the esports gaming and finding out which ones are set to increase it in their industry by percentage and everything, I came across a couple articles that were about female esports people, and they were same common stories. You're only in here because you're the token female, or you know what I mean, or that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was great to see, because it kind of followed, because I read the article a few days ago, and then I saw that, I thought, that's good.
She's amazing, and her product, what she's developing is out of this world in terms of racing. Out of this world, huh, Richard? We were blown away when we saw her.
I'm such a fan of Steph and what she's doing and what she's trying to accomplish. She's doing some incredible things.
Yeah.
Well, if you watch this, Steph, please get in contact.
Yes, get a hold of Emmanuel. I know he was trying to shout. So, all right, we'll sign off. But Emmanuel, don't go anywhere, because we do want to say a few closing words to you personally. And everyone, thank you for participating tonight. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Yes.
I suppose I have to push the off button.
Push the off.